So I'm kind of looking at your resume here. So you're working, as the vice president of franchising until July 2019 before you become a franchise owner. Did you know COVID was going to happen in 2020 and that the home service business was going to explode? That you're like, you know what? I think I want to own a whole bunch of these before 2020.
But that's where I just laugh and shake my head. That we used to joke in the Marine Corps, there's no atheists in foxholes. Well, in franchising, you do a lot of paying as well, but. Not knowing that COVID was happening was part of it. Not knowing that we were going to get hit by 2 hurricanes in the first 18 months.
Oh,
one, basically doing a direct hit on our facility in the area of our facility and blowing some of our neighboring buildings away. And we just got spared with garage doors and roll up doors and glass doors being blown out and some of the ceiling being blown off. But you know what it is, man? There's adversity everywhere. And, the freak out factor hit me when COVID came down, and we have this new fleet of vehicles, and I bought up some new vans to upgrade our team at the time, and then we were told we couldn't go anywhere in clients' homes, right. And we weren't going to do basically our entire business. We don't have a to-go or a DoorDash or a delivery business for custom home storage. We have to get in the homes to do it.
Sure.
So yeah, it freaked us out a little bit, and then we just worked through it. And I think I'll give a plug again to IFA, and I think the strength of a brand that we came together, shared best practices, pivoted unbelievably on the sales side on what we were doing. And we had a whole virtual environment set up and certifications so that people had confidence in knowing how to navigate through that. And then it just came down to being smart, managing money and making sure your people are safe, right? And that was huge because they didn't know what was happening either. So
sure.
Yeah.
But you did have explosive growth, I would imagine, once you guys were able to get back into the homes.
We did, and I'll just speak about my business. But yeah, we tripled in about 4 years. We tripled the size of our business, which, again, I think speaks partly to the opportunity that was there when I acquired the business, but also to our amazing team and the support that we got to execute on that and take it to that level. But it's like anything, Frank, and you saw it multiple times. You either see the challenges or the opportunities, and the word chaos, right? We all know what that means, those things. So yeah, it was a trip. I have a very understanding wife and a at times semi-full liquor cabinet that helped me navigate some of those decisions.
So I want to go back to 2019. You go home one day and you tell your wife, I think I want to be a franchise owner. What does she say?
Well, it actually is even a little bit before that. So, I think that the definition of an entrepreneur in some cases is someone who's too much of a pain in the ass to work for somebody else again. And I think I probably evolved to that point to some degree. And I had been trying in my role as VP of franchising, I had been trying to find a buyer for the owner in the market. And he had some health issues and was a good friend of mine. And I know what they were up to. And it was urgent that they get out of the business. And I had made a couple visits and tried to find a buyer. And the last one we turned down after having the conversation with the owner. I'm like, look, this candidate won't get approved. And he just spoke of some of the desperation. And to be candid, I had been thinking about it for a while. Mm-hmm. I had the itch to own my own gig again. And I was sitting in the Sky Club of the New Orleans airport. And I'd gotten to know the bartender pretty well. And we were just chatting. And I'll give him credit because he's a good friend to this day. And I looked at him and I was kind of telling the story, and he goes, Joe, why aren't you buying it? You talked about looking at doing something, and you love this business. I see your eyes light up when you talk about the business and the brand and the people you get to do it with. And that's honestly where I got home, and I thought about it the whole flight back to Atlanta at the time, and that's where I just said, and my wife was like, yeah, that's great. Get the details. Let's go for it. So she knows after all these years, I've done so many different things, and fortunately, knock on wood, they've worked out pretty well. So she had a lot of faith in that.
That's great. Well, yeah, we know it definitely takes having a strong spouse and spousal support to make the machine work, right?
Yeah. Well, you've got to have your community, and that's a big part of franchising, right? Is you got to set a culture and have people that align with that and values that. When times get tough, that adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And you've got to have it to be able to lean on when times get thin like that.
Yeah. So that's the great time to kind of segue to your involvement in the IFA. As long as I've known you, you've always been someone so involved in the franchise community. And I thought that's why it'd be great also to bring you on is talk about your involvement in franchising, not just with California Closet or TSS Photography, but your involvement because you see things at a much more macro level in franchising, and you've been around in being involved in so many different brands and seeing the great work that the IFA does. And look, I'm not afraid to make this an IFA commercial because I have a debt of gratitude to the IFA, and to get all of the knowledge from everybody that was so generous. I grew my business because of the other people. It wasn't because of what I knew. I didn't know anything about franchising. So you've been on the board of directors now from 2020 till end of 2023. So I'd love to hear more about what your role has been and the impact that you've had an opportunity to make.
Yeah, well, you touched on a little bit earlier, Frank. I didn't know anything about franchising really, except McDonald's and Holiday Inn as a kid. And when I took on this role, I am fastidious about wanting to learn and accelerate the learning curve to things. And I think for sure that's what the IFA does and did for me. I got connected up with some neat people. My first conference, my first IFA conference in 1994 that I went to, one of the first people I met was Rhonda Sanderson, who I know was actually instrumental in you and I getting together at that dinner umpteen years ago.
Yes.
And, Scott Lair and Paul Rocchio and so many of the people that were there at the time that really took us under their wing and pointed us to the right area. And Lane Fisher from a legal side of it immediately, he and Rich Greenstein were great attorney resources for us when we had to navigate some of those things over time. And for me, obviously, I was in the Marine Corps and serving and giving back is important. So the IFA, for all those years that it gave to me, I felt, a debt to give something back and to be part of that loop of refreshing things and helping serve and take them to where they'd like to go and not just help me get to where I wanted to go, right? Getting on the VetFran committee back in 1994 was really the first step to seeing the inner workings of it. I remember early on, I actually applied to the board back in the mid 90s. And I think I got the nicest rejection letter, but they're like, hey, how about you come to 5 meetings before you try and run for the board? And I didn't really know. I just wanted to help. I just wanted to serve. And so that's where I got pointed into some of these channels. And I've been on the franchisee committee. I've been on VetFran. I've been on the conference committees and other special programs and had the opportunity to meet with and testify and work with Congress on things that are important to small business owners and work with veterans in transitioning from, a uniform into a corporate brand, from serving the country to serving constituents in the retail space. So it's been a lot of fun. I think for sure I could serve for 20 years more and not give back everything that I've received from it. So I'm very humble and appreciative to that. But I think, that's one of the things that, anybody looking to get into franchising or looking to really shake the tree and do something different. There's so many people in the franchise community in the IFA that have done it already. There's opportunities in other countries that I've been able to open up master franchises in New Zealand and Australia, and we had South Africa and Canada and Mexico, and we've not gone to countries because of what we've learned through the IFA and not gone into certain businesses that we've learned through that. So yeah, we've been through brand changes that again, I lean on people that I met through different companies, and Matt Alden's been a buddy of mine from the first days in franchising, and it's been a lot of fun. And again, I think there's just so much information there that's constantly changing, and even up to today, to the battles we're having with some of the states and the ways that they want to wholesale change the franchise model, and whether it's joint employer, whether it's other tax and revenue reporting issues or other things that we have. I know the IFA is standing on guard 24/7 on behalf of this whole distribution model and this industry of franchising that needs someone to advocate for them, because they're seeing things when they're at a committee level 2 steps out of ever getting to the state legislature. They're catching wind of things that are coming up that they're trying to put fires out before we even see the first spark. So it's very important that we have them out there for us.
Sure. And the other thing about just being part of the IFA, kind of what you said earlier, is that you don't have to do this alone. Somebody has already done what you're trying to do. There's no reason to say, well, I can't do this because I don't know. Yeah. If you talk to enough people that are involved in the IFA, somebody is there to help you. There is somebody who has done it.
Absolutely, man. And I know you've never met a stranger either. You're easy guy to talk to, and you've always been willing to listen and open up conversations. And I think that's just the secret. You've got to be willing to just ask the question that you're that you're needing help with. And, and I know I've bounced things off you over the years, Frank, and you've had a great group of team members that work for you at I-9. And one of my old guys, worked at I-9 and partnered with some of your guys over the years. And I think that's the cool thing, is that there's people out there that just want to help, and they want to have those conversations, know what you're up against. And if they don't know, they probably know somebody that does. So that's the unique networking part of it. It's so cool.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.